On a quiet night, a high-ranking black police captain was driving home, finally heading to relax after a long day. He was off duty, dressed casually, and feeling relieved to have finished a tough shift. His mind wandered to family plans, what he would cook for dinner, and thoughts of relaxing on the sofa. Just as he was turning onto a familiar road, red and blue lights flashed in his rear-view mirror. A police car was following him, with sirens blaring and demanding that he pull over. A bit annoyed but understanding the routine, he calmly stopped his car to the side. He thought it must be a mistake. Maybe they were looking for someone else or conducting a random check. He reached for the glove compartment to take out his driver's license and registration, knowing it would be quick to clear up the situation once he explained his position and showed his identification. As the officer approached his window, it became clear from the young police officer's expression that he had already made a decision about the man he had stopped. He had a serious, almost confrontational look, and the captain noticed it immediately. The young officer didn't ask any standard questions as he would have expected. "Good evening," or "Do you know why I stopped you?" Instead, he seemed tense, and his tone was anything but courteous. The captain, choosing patience, calmly asked, "Is there a reason you stopped me, officer?" The young police officer, visibly uncomfortable, mumbled something about a suspicious vehicle and a possible traffic violation. It was vague, even by the standards of a traffic stop, and the captain immediately knew something was wrong. But he remained calm, holding back any reaction. He simply asked, "Could you be more specific about what I did wrong?" Instead of responding with details, the officer's tone became firmer, as if the police officer was more interested in asserting control than clearly explaining anything. He looked at the captain's casual clothing, perhaps judging him solely by his appearance, as if he were automatically guilty of something. This wasn't the first time the captain had handled a tense situation, but that night felt different. He had never been on the side of being stopped by a police officer and felt a mix of anger and sadness creeping in, but he wasn't ready to reveal his identity yet. He wanted to see how this officer, who clearly hadn't recognized him, would handle the situation if he thought he was just an ordinary citizen. The young officer repeated that he needed to see his identification. The captain calmly nodded, reaching for his badge kept next to his license. Upon handing both over, he maintained his steady gaze, observing every detail of the officer's reaction. The young police officer's face paled, his eyes moving from the badge to the man in the driver's seat, finally realizing who he had stopped. It was a moment of recognition, and it was clear he hadn't expected it. The officer stammered, at a loss for words, trying to cover up his mistake, but the captain remained silent, waiting to see if the young police officer would take responsibility or simply make excuses for his behavior. The young officer stayed there, looking bewildered and insecure, his face showing a mix of shame and fear. He knew he had made a mistake, and the realization hit him hard. For a moment, there was silence. The captain watched as the young officer's mind raced, clearly trying to figure out how to handle this unexpected turn of events. The captain decided to break the silence. "It seems like you have a lot to think about right now," he said calmly. His voice was steady, trying to prevent the tension from escalating further. He wanted to turn this uncomfortable situation into a moment of reflection, not conflict. "I understand you're just doing your job, but you should know that stops like this can have serious consequences." The officer shifted his weight from one foot to the other, clearly struggling to respond. "I didn't do it on purpose," he stammered, searching for the right words. "I just saw you driving and thought something was wrong." The captain took a deep breath, feeling the officer's hesitation and realizing it could be an opportunity to educate him. "What about my driving seemed suspicious?" he asked kindly. "Was I speeding, swerving, or just seemed like I didn't belong on the road?" The officer looked down, unable to maintain the captain's gaze. It was as if he was grappling with the realization that he had let his prejudices cloud his judgment. "I don't know, I guess I just assumed that because of the color of your skin you weren't trustworthy. That's what racial profiling is, and it's a serious problem." The young officer's face turned red with shame. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to profile you. I just didn't think that. Thinking can lead to problems both for you and the people you stop." The captain responded, speaking with the authority that comes from years of experience in law enforcement, but did so with a softness that showed he truly cared about fostering change. Every interaction counts. You have the power to make a difference in people's lives, for better or for worse. As the young officer listened, the gravity of the moment began to sink in. He seemed to realize that being a police officer wasn't just about enforcing the law, but also about building trust within the community. The captain could see the wheels turning in his mind as he pondered how his actions could have affected not just this encounter, but countless others. After a moment, the officer took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right, I need to improve. I want to improve. This isn't how I want to serve my community." The captain smiled, appreciating the young officer's willingness to learn and grow. "We all have room to improve. It's what we do with these moments that matters." I said, "It's important to have these conversations, even when they're uncomfortable." The young officer finally held the captain's gaze, with renewed respect in his eyes. "Thank you for not losing your cool," he said sincerely. "I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me." At that moment, the tension began to dissipate. The captain realized that both were part of a larger community, and although their paths had crossed in a problematic way, there was potential for growth and understanding. He hoped that this interaction would be a turning point, not just for the young officer, but also for the community they both served. As the conversation continued, the young officer seemed more relaxed, his body language shifting from defensive to open. The captain saw this change and felt encouraged. It was clear that the young man was beginning to understand the impact of his actions. This wasn't just another confrontation, but an opportunity for growth. "Let me ask you something," the captain said thoughtfully. "What kind of officer do you want to be?" The question hung in the air, giving the young officer a moment to reflect. He scratched his head, looking genuinely confused. "I want to be a good officer, someone people can trust," he finally replied. "But sometimes I feel like I'm just following orders. I don't want to be seen as the bad guy." The captain nodded, understanding where he was coming from. It's important to remember that you're not just following orders, you're making decisions every day that affect people's lives. Being a good officer means thinking critically about those decisions, even when it's uncomfortable. The officer frowned, absorbing the weight of those words. "I understand. Sometimes it's hard, especially when you're new on the job and trying to prove yourself. I want my colleagues to see me as capable. I thought being tough was the way to do it." "That's a common misconception," the captain said in an encouraging tone. "Being tough doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. True strength comes from showing understanding and compassion. Those qualities help build trust with the community, which is crucial in your line of work." The young officer nodded slowly, seeming to digest this new perspective. "I never thought about it that way. I've just been so focused on the badge that I forgot what it really represents." "Exactly," the captain replied. "It represents safety, service, and community. When people see a police officer, they should feel safe and protected, not threatened. Your actions can help create that feeling." The officer shifted his weight again, looking around as if seeing his surroundings for the first time. "You're right, I need to remember that every time I put on this uniform, I'm a representative of something bigger." "Absolutely," the captain said with a smile. "And it's up to you to decide what kind of representation you'll be. It can start here and now." Just then, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, bringing their thoughts back to the reality of their jobs. The captain took a moment to observe the officer's reaction, noticing how he straightened up at the sound. It was a reflection, a reminder of the duty that awaited him. "You know," the captain continued, "sometimes after a moment like this, officers feel the need to brush it off and move on. But this is your opportunity to reflect and improve. Think about how you can make a difference with every interaction, even the small ones." The young officer seemed thoughtful. "You're giving me a lot to think about. I want to make sure my next traffic stop isn't just about the rules, but about treating people with respect and dignity." The captain nodded approvingly. "That's the spirit. It takes time, and you'll make mistakes along the way, but what matters is your willingness to learn and grow from those experiences." With renewed determination, the young officer smiled. "Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I didn't expect the stop to turn into a life lesson." The captain chuckled lightly. "Sometimes, the most unexpected moments teach us the most. Just remember, The real test is how you choose to act from now on. As they prepared to part ways, both men felt the weight of the moment. They had taken a significant step toward understanding and healing, demonstrating that even a difficult encounter could become a turning point for change. As the captain and the young officer prepared to conclude their conversation, the atmosphere began to shift. The tension that had filled the air earlier was now replaced by a sense of mutual respect and understanding. The captain felt relieved. He had hoped this moment would trigger something positive, and it seemed to be working. "Before I go," the captain said, "I want to share something that has always helped me in my career. It's about being part of the community." He paused, making sure the young officer was attentive and ready to listen. "You see, being a police officer isn't just about enforcing laws, but about being part of people's lives." The young officer seemed intrigued. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, eager to learn more. "Well," the captain continued, "when I started, I realized that many people in the community see officers as protectors or law enforcers, but often they only see a uniform. If we want them to see the person behind the badge, we need to connect with them on a human level." The officer nodded, processing the idea. "That makes sense, but how do you connect with people who might be afraid of the police?" "Good question," the captain replied. "It's about building trust. Sometimes that means attending community events, participating in local sports, or even just being present in neighborhoods. Show people that we care, not just when something goes wrong, but also when everything is going right." The young officer seemed to reflect on this. "So, it's not just about wearing the uniform, but earning respect through actions." "Exactly," the captain exclaimed. "When you present yourself in the community, not just in uniform, but as a person, you break down barriers. You become more than a figure of authority. You become someone they can talk to, someone they trust." He could see the young officer's expression changing. "I want to do that," he said enthusiastically. "I want to be someone people feel comfortable approaching. I don't want to be feared." "That's a great goal," the captain encouraged him. "And remember, every small interaction counts. A smile, a greeting, or just listening to someone can change how they perceive you. Show that you're not just there to enforce the laws, but to support and protect." As they talked, the young officer began to open up about his own experiences. "Sometimes I feel pressured by my colleagues to act tough. It's like there's an expectation to show strength, even when it doesn't feel right." The captain leaned in, understanding the weight of that statement. "It's tough, I get it, but true strength lies in doing what's right, even if it goes against the norm. If you stand firm in your values, others will notice and might even follow your example." The young officer seemed inspired. "You know, I've been thinking about ways to improve my approach at work. Maybe I could organize some community events where officers can meet residents outside of stressful situations." "That's a fantastic idea," the captain responded enthusiastically. "Events like that can help bridge the gap and foster a sense of belonging. It's about showing that you're there for them, not just as a figure of authority, but as a neighbor and a friend." Feeling renewed energy, the young officer began to propose more ideas. "Maybe we could organize open forums where people can come and talk about their concerns. That way, we can understand what the community needs and how we can help." "I love that," the captain said, feeling hopeful about the potential for change. Engaging in real conversations can break down barriers. People need to feel heard and understood. It's not just about enforcing the law, but about partnering. Both stayed there for a moment, reflecting on the conversation. The captain felt proud of the young officer's willingness to change and hoped this would be the beginning of a new path for him. As they shook hands to say goodbye, the captain felt a sense of accomplishment. "Remember, change takes time, but every step counts," the captain said with a smile. "You're on the right path. Keep fighting for what's right." With that, the young officer nodded, determination renewed in his eyes. He watched as the captain walked away, feeling inspired and ready to embrace his role in a new way. This moment had transformed him, and he was eager to take the lessons learned back to his headquarters, hoping to make a real difference in his community. As the captain walked away, he felt a mix of relief and hope. Not only had he avoided a potentially explosive situation, but he had also opened a door for change. The young officer had shown a willingness to learn, which was a promising sign. He knew that conversations like theirs could create waves of understanding and perhaps even reshape the culture within the police department. Meanwhile, the young officer stayed at the roadside, feeling a wave of inspiration wash over him as he watched the captain walk away. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was more than just a routine traffic stop. It was a wake-up call pushing him to rethink his approach to policing. He realized he wanted to be the type of officer who would be seen as a protector, not just a law enforcer. In the following days, the young officer began to deeply reflect on what he had learned during their conversation. He realized that he had been so focused on following orders and proving himself to his colleagues that he had lost sight of what it meant to serve the community. He wanted to change that. One night, he decided to approach some of his colleagues to share his thoughts. In a team meeting, he spoke, trying to convey the importance of community engagement. "I had a really eye-opening experience recently," he began, feeling nervous but determined. "I stopped a man who turned out to be a high-ranking officer. Instead of escalating the situation, we had a conversation about how we can better connect with our community." His colleagues listened attentively, some raising their eyebrows in surprise. "What do you mean by that?" one asked curiously. "I mean, we need to think about how our actions impact the people we serve. People aren't just numbers or cases. They're our neighbors, our friends," he explained passionately. "When we stop someone or respond to a call, we should be aware of how they might perceive us. Building trust is as important as enforcing the laws," he continued. "We could organize community events like coffee mornings or open forums where people can come and talk to us. That could help us understand their concerns and show them that we care." A senior officer intervened. "That sounds good in theory, but do you really think people will come? They might be afraid or distrustful of us." "I understand," the young officer responded, "but isn't that exactly why we should try? If we don't make an effort to reach out, we'll never break down those barriers. The more we engage with the community, the more they'll see us as allies instead of adversaries." His enthusiasm began to spread. One by one, his colleagues started to express their support. They discussed ideas for local events, generating excitement about how to make a genuine connection with the community. The conversations sparked enthusiasm, and the young officer felt encouraged by the growing momentum. In the following weeks, they organized their first community event, an informal coffee meetup at a local park. They advertised it on social media, hoping to attract residents from various neighborhoods. On the day of the event, the officer set up tables and brought coffee, donuts, and refreshments. At first, only a few people attended, but gradually more residents arrived, curious to hear what the officers had to say. The atmosphere was relaxed, with laughter and conversations filling the air. The young officer felt a surge of hope as he saw families enjoying the morning and engaging in conversations with the officers. As they interacted with community members, the officers listened to concerns about safety, local issues, and the challenges residents faced. They shared stories, laughed, and built connections. The young officer realized that this was exactly what he had hoped for, an opportunity to humanize the badge and bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. At the end of the event, many residents expressed their gratitude for the officer's efforts. "This is great," the young officer thought, seeing his initiative starting to bear fruit. "We should do this more often," a resident said with a smile. The young officer felt pride growing within him. This was just the beginning, but he could already see the positive change happening. Looking around, seeing people mingling and enjoying each other's company, he felt grateful for the captain's wisdom that had inspired him. It was clear that real change was possible, one conversation at a time. The young officer walked away from the event feeling empowered, knowing he could make a difference, not just for himself, but for the entire community. After the successful coffee meetup, the young officer felt a sense of momentum growing within his department and the community. Inspired by the positive feedback, he wanted to keep the momentum going. He began generating ideas for the next community event, eager to build on the connections they had created. He gathered his team again, excited to share his thoughts. "What if we organize a community safety workshop next? We could teach families about crime prevention and how to stay safe," he suggested. His colleagues nodded, seeing the potential in the idea. One officer added, "We could invite local experts to talk about things like home security and personal safety. It would be a great way to empower residents." "Yes," the young officer responded. energized by the idea. We want people to feel informed and secure about their safety. This could be a way to create a sense of partnership between us and the community. As they planned the workshop, they reached out to local organizations and experts who could help. They wanted to ensure that the information shared was valuable and practical. They decided to invite a local crime prevention specialist who had experience working with neighborhoods to reduce crime rates. On the day of the workshop, the venue buzzed with excitement. Families arrived curious about what they would learn. The young officer felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation as he welcomed everyone. "Thank you all for coming today," he said, standing at the front of the room. "We're here to share information that can help keep you and your family safe. We believe that by working together, we can make our community a better place." The crime prevention specialist began the workshop by discussing various topics, from securing homes to recognizing suspicious behaviors. The young officer noticed how engaged everyone was, asking questions and sharing their own experiences. It was clear that people wanted to actively participate in their safety. During a break, families mingled, and the young officer took the opportunity to connect with the attendees. He spoke with a mother who had attended the previous event. "I really appreciate everything you're doing," she said. "It's nice to see officers here taking the time to talk with us." "Thank you for coming," he replied, feeling a warm sense of gratitude. "It means a lot to know we're making a difference." As the workshop continued, participants discussed the importance of community watch programs. The young officer felt inspired by the enthusiasm in the room. People wanted to take an active role in their safety and knew this was a perfect opportunity to foster that spirit. After the presentation, he gathered everyone again. "I suggest we start a neighborhood watch program," he announced. "This could be a great way to work together, take care of each other, and build stronger connections within our community." A man from the crowd interjected, "That sounds like a great idea. We need to look out for each other, and having regular meetings would help keep everyone informed." "Exactly," the young officer responded enthusiastically. "We can hold regular meetings to discuss concerns and share information. It's about creating a support network." As people began to discuss the logistics, the young officer felt a sense of pride. This was the kind of commitment he had envisioned when he first talked about community events. They weren't just talking, they were taking action together. As the workshop was coming to an end, families left not only with new knowledge, but also with a sense of empowerment. The young officer could see the change taking shape. This was a community coming together, united by a shared goal of safety and connection. Later that night, as he reflected on the day, he felt grateful for the journey he had embarked on. He knew that building trust and community required time and effort, but every step forward was worth it. He felt a renewed commitment to this path, ready to continue fighting for positive change in his community. The young officer realized he was no longer just a police officer. He was becoming a vital part of a community that was learning to trust one another, and he couldn't wait to see where this journey would take them next. With the Neighborhood Watch program officially underway, the young officer felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was excited to see the community taking such an active role in their safety and well-being, but he also knew that maintaining this momentum would require dedication and constant effort. In the following weeks, he focused on recruiting more participants for the Neighborhood Watch program. He visited local community centers and spoke at schools, sharing the benefits of getting involved. He emphasized how the program could help everyone feel safer and more connected. His enthusiasm was contagious, and people began to sign up, eager to join the initiative. As more residents got involved, they held their first official meeting. The young officer organized for everyone to gather in a local community hall. On the day of the meeting, he arrived early to arrange the chairs and prepare the materials. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, wondering how many people would attend. As the start time approached, families began to arrive slowly, chatting and catching up with one another. The young officer smiled as he saw familiar faces from previous events. This meeting felt more like a community gathering than a simple meeting, and he was pleased to see everyone coming together. When it was time to begin, he stood at the front of the room and welcomed everyone. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said with a warm voice. We're starting this neighborhood watch program to help us take care of each other and build a stronger, safer community. He described the goals of the program: sharing information about local issues, reporting suspicious activities, and fostering a sense of partnership between residents and law enforcement. The more he spoke, the more energy filled the room. People were eager to contribute and share their thoughts. During the meeting, residents began to express their concerns. A woman spoke about the increase in vehicle thefts in her neighborhood. "It's been happening more frequently, and it makes me feel unsafe," she said. The young officer nodded, acknowledging her concern. "Thank you for bringing this up. We can work together to stay alert and report any suspicious activity." Another man raised his hand, sharing his own story. "I saw someone acting strangely near my neighbor's house last week. I wasn't sure if I should report it or not," he said. "Now I know I can report those things," the young officer responded. "That's exactly the information we need. Every detail matters. If something seems off, it's always better to speak up than to stay silent." As the discussion continued, people began to feel more comfortable sharing their thoughts and experiences. They discussed strategies to keep their homes safe and create a communication network. The young officer encouraged everyone to exchange phone numbers and contact information, emphasizing that they could create a group chat to stay connected. By the end of the meeting, the room was filled with a sense of unity and determination. People were eager to take action, and the young officer felt a surge of pride. He knew this was just the beginning, but they were laying the groundwork for a stronger community. After the meeting, several residents approached him to express their gratitude for organizing the program. "Thank you for bringing us together this way," a smiling woman said. "It feels good to know we're not alone in this." The young officer smiled, feeling fulfilled. "It's my pleasure. We're all in this together, and I'm here to support you every step of the way." In the following weeks, the Neighborhood Watch program began to take shape. Residents communicated regularly, sharing updates and checking in on each other. The young officer joined the group chats, offering advice and answering questions. He felt encouraged by the commitment and dedication he saw in the community. One night, while patrolling the area, he noticed groups of neighbors chatting outside their homes, looking out for one another. This filled him with hope as he saw how people were building connections and taking responsibility for their safety together. Through these experiences, the young officer realized that the true essence of police work wasn't just about enforcing laws, but about fostering relationships and trust. He felt grateful for the opportunity to be part of this journey. The Neighborhood Watch program wasn't just a project. It was a movement toward a safer, more connected community. The young officer hoped to continue this work, knowing they were making a real difference, one day at a time. As weeks turned into months, the Neighborhood Watch program grew stronger and more committed. The young officer felt a sense of pride as he saw the community coming together in ways he had only hoped for. Families weren't just looking out for themselves. They were genuinely invested in the safety and well-being of their neighbors. This transformation was moving and inspiring. On a sunny Saturday, the young officer organized a community cleanup event. He wanted to give the community another opportunity to come together while beautifying their shared spaces. With the help of residents, they planned to clean up the local park that had been neglected for too long. Everyone was excited and spread the word through flyers and social media, inviting everyone to join that day for the cleanup. The park was full of energy. Residents arrived with trash bags, gloves, and lots of enthusiasm. The young officer greeted everyone with a smile, feeling grateful for their willingness to participate. "Thank you all for coming today. Together, we can make a big difference," he announced, feeling a wave of positivity as they began to clean. Community members worked side by side, chatting and laughing as they picked up trash and planted flowers. The young officer moved from group to group, offering encouragement and support. He loved seeing people who previously felt distant from each other now forming friendships. Neighbors shared stories about their lives, their families, and their hopes for the community. During a break, the young officer gathered everyone to thank them for their hard work. "Look at what we've accomplished together. This park looks amazing, and it's thanks to you," he said, pointing to the transformed space. "Not only have we made this place cleaner and safer, but we've also strengthened our connections." After the cleanup, the young officer organized a small picnic. He wanted to celebrate their hard work and further foster the community spirit. He provided snacks and drinks, encouraging everyone to relax and enjoy each other's company. As they ate and chatted, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy. People were genuinely happy to be together. As the sun began to set, a resident stood up to share her thoughts. "I just want to say how much I appreciate this neighborhood watch program. It's changed my perspective on safety and community," she said. "Before, I felt like I didn't know my neighbors or who was who. Now, I feel like we're all part of something special." The young officer smiled, feeling fulfilled. Her words reflected everything he had hoped to achieve. This wasn't just about enforcing the law, but about building trust and friendship. It was about creating a community where everyone felt valued and safe. As the afternoon continued, people exchanged contact information, planning future meetings and collaborations. The young officer could see that the Neighborhood Watch program was growing into something bigger than just a security initiative. It was becoming a vital part of their lives. In the coming months, the community planned more events: movie nights in the park, safety workshops, and Christmas celebrations. Each meeting brought more people together, and the bonds between residents deepened. The young officer felt a strong sense of belonging as he became part of their lives, sharing in their joys and challenges. One night, while patrolling the area, he received a call about a suspicious person in the neighborhood. Instead of feeling anxious, he felt confident. He knew that the residents were looking out for each other. He arrived and found several neighbors already gathered, discussing what they had seen. They worked together to maintain vigilance and reported the details to the young officer. The incident turned out to be harmless, but the sense of community was undeniable. The young officer felt grateful to be part of a team and a community that looked out for one another. He knew that the Neighborhood Watch had created a culture of vigilance, but more importantly, it had built trust among the residents. Reflecting on the journey, he realized that the work he and his colleagues had invested in fostering relationships had paid off in ways they hadn't imagined. The trust they had built transformed not only how residents viewed the police, but also how they saw each other. It was a beautiful reminder of the power of community and connection. With his heart full of hope, the young officer looked to the future. He knew that by continuing to work together, they could create a safer, stronger, and more connected community for everyone, and that was something truly special. If this video has helped you connect more with yourself and inspired you on your growth journey, take action and subscribe to the Vidas Inspiration channel to discover more stories that will fill you with motivation and hope. I would love to hear your opinion, so leave a comment telling me how this story has impacted your life or what reflections it has left you with. And if you believe this message can inspire someone you know, share it with your friends so they too can find inspiration and purpose in their lives.